So in my last video, I talked about how to learn two languages at the same time. I said that I generally don't recommend it because it can really slow your progress, cause confusion, eventually lead to burnout, and so it's risky. However, in that same video, I gave my tips and recommendations for anybody that's going to do that anyway. Here's that video if you're interested. In it, I also mentioned that I was curious to try it myself someday. And today is going to be that someday. So in this video, I'm going to explain how I plan on learning three languages at the same time, follow the same principles that I laid out in the previous video, and hopefully use myself as an example. So one of the first things that I talked about in the last video was to start by planning and choosing languages that are distant enough from each other so that they don't interfere during your language learning process. So far, the two languages that I'm learning are Spanish and Japanese. I've been learning Spanish for a while now. I just started Japanese New Year's Day. So the new languages that I'm going to be adding are going to be French and German. So I'm going to break this down a little more for you. First off, Japanese is extremely distant from English and any of the other languages that I'll be studying this year. It has a completely different writing system, vocabulary base, grammar structure, which means there's virtually no risk of mixing it up with any other language. Since I already started that this year, that's going to be my primary focus. Next is Spanish. So for Spanish, it's going to play a slightly different role. One of the recommendations that I had made was to stagger your languages if you're going to be learning more than one language at once. So since I already started Spanish and it's at an intermediate level, it should be stable. And that means that when I start learning other languages, I can kind of learn Spanish in the background and I don't have to really worry about it instead of treating it as a beginner language. So that'll be focusing on a slower growth, deepening it through immersion. And I plan on living my life in Spanish instead of English as much as possible, consuming Spanish media, reading, texting, practicing native structures all throughout the day. So it won't really feel like study, but it will be more like a second operating system active in my brain. French is the next language in the lineup. French is a Romance language like Spanish, and normally that would be risky to learn together. However, since Spanish is already at an intermediate level and it's more established in my mind, there is much less risk of any negative transfer. And that leaves German. So German is the closest language to my native tongue, which is English. There's going to be no issue there because interference really only affects things that you're currently learning and not things that you already know. So each language should occupy a different mental space in my brain, and it'll make it easier for me to manage each one and make it more feasible. Another recommendation that I made was to adjust the study time that you allot for each so that your primary language gets the majority of your focus. For two languages, I recommended a 70-30 split. I don't recommend reducing any time for your primary language. So in this instance, it's going to be with the remaining 30%. So I'll divide that. That means that it'll be more like a 70-20-10 ratio. In my case, Japanese will take roughly 70% of my active study time, translating to about 3.5-4 hours each day. French will take around 20 to 30 minutes, and German will take just under an hour. Normally, I would flip it because I actually want French to be my primary language next year. However, the reason I'm devoting more time to German is because I'll be testing out two different language learning platforms as part of a long-term experiment. And if I study French for 20 to 30 minutes, it'll just happen to finish the app that I'll be using by the end of this year. I don't want to detract any focus from Japanese, so I want French and German to be getting just enough time to really just dip into the language and make very slow progress for the time being. Also, the app for German will take me much longer to finish, but I have plenty of time for that because I don't plan on making German my primary focus until 2029. So I have time. To prevent the languages from blending together, I'll be using different study methods, associating each with different routines and chores. For instance, I plan on studying French first thing in the morning and then switching to German when I get up and do my morning chores. And then I'll break it up by exercising and maybe watching something in Spanish or easy Japanese, take a shower, eat breakfast, relax, and then I'll start to actively study Japanese then. After that, the rest of the day will be in Spanish. So based on that pace, I hope that Japanese will be at a B1 level by the end of the year. Spanish, hopefully a C1 finally. French, whatever the app will get me to, maybe B1. And German will be in the background just chugging along. Now, if you may have noticed that I said I wanted to start learning German in 2029 as my primary language. And I plan on learning a new language each year. So that means that this year's Japanese, French is next year. Then there's a gap in 2028 and then German in 2029. Hopefully this works out. But that means that in 2028, there's going to be like a secret language that I plan on revealing. Probably going to reveal it in a future video where I actually show all the language and talk about the details, the breakdown, the daily and yearly hours that I have laid out, scheduling strategies, all of that. I have it all broken up into literally counting the minutes, the total minutes. I'm generally excited about this project. It should be interesting. I do have a little confession. I don't actually enjoy learning languages. I try to make it as enjoyable as possible, and that's why I talk about that in my videos, because to me, I really just want to be comfortably fluent in the language and get to that point. It's kind of like exercising for me. I don't like exercising, but I know that in order to get what I want, I have to exercise to have that strength and confidence and progress that I'll see. So ultimately, my real goal is to be comfortably fluent to live in all of these languages. But yeah, so that's my plan for the next few years. Eventually, I'll be adding more. So I can foresee this being a core part of my channel, this kind of long-term experiment, documenting what works and what doesn't, and what's realistically achievable. So wish me luck. Maybe even say a little prayer for me. I think I'll need it. This is going to take a while, but I have no plans on stopping anytime soon. I wish you all the very best. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all very soon.